If you've watched any pension drawdown video this year, you've seen the number £16,760. That's supposed to be the amount you can pull from your pension every year without paying a penny of tax, 25% tax-free cash plus your full personal allowance stacked on top. Here's the number almost nobody puts next to it, £12,548. That's the full new state pension for 2026-27. If you're already receiving it, your personal allowance is already spoken for before your pension provider sends you a single payment. The allowance is £12,570. Your state pension alone eats £12,548 of it. You've got £22 left, not £12,570. Try to draw that £16,760 the way the video told you to, and a big slice of it lands in the 20% tax band you thought you'd dodged. I used to think the £16,760 strategy was the closest thing to a free lunch in retirement planning. Then I sat down with a client who had a full state pension and no other income, and watched the maths fall apart in front of both of us. That was the moment I realized I'd been giving out advice that only worked for half the room. The mechanism that actually saves you here is something called the tax-free cash slice, 25% of any withdrawal that the state pension can never touch, no matter how much of your allowance it's already used. I'll walk you through exactly how that works with real numbers from this tax year, and why the £16,760 figure still matters once you know how to time it properly. If you're within 5 years of retirement, and you'd rather not hand over tax you didn't have to, subscribe now. Most drawdown advice out there assumes you have no other income at all. If you've worked your whole life and built up a state pension, that assumption was never about you. Take John. He's 66, and his full state pension pays him £12,548 a year. His personal allowance is £12,570, leaving him £22 of headroom, nowhere near enough for anything meaningful. He's got a £180,000 pension pot and wants to draw £16,760 from it this year, the same figure from every drawdown video he's watched, using something called UFPLS, an uncrystallised funds pension lump sum. That withdrawal splits two ways whether he likes it or not. £4,190 of it comes out tax-free. The remaining £12,570 counts as taxable income, stacked directly on top of his state pension. His total taxable income for the year becomes £25,118. Take off the personal allowance, and £12,548 of that gets taxed at 20%. His tax bill on a withdrawal he thought was tax-free comes to £2,509.60. That's the gap almost nobody explains before you make your first withdrawal. UFPLS mixes tax-free cash and taxable income together in one payment every single time, in a fixed 25-75 split. Once you've got other income sitting underneath it, like a full state pension, that automatic mix pushes you into tax you never planned for. Every year you repeat that same withdrawal without separating it. You're not paying that tax bill once, you're locking it in as a habit for every year after. There's a way around it. Flexi-access drawdown lets you separate the two. You can crystallize part of your pot and take only the 25% tax-free portion, £4,190 in John's case, and leave the taxable 75% invested and untouched until a year when your income is lower. No taxable income lands on top of his state pension, no unexpected tax bill. This matters even more once you hear about the MPAA, the Money Purchase Annual Allowance. The moment you take a single pound of taxable pension income, your annual allowance for future pension contributions drops from £60,000 to £10,000 for as long as you keep drawing. Taking only the tax-free 25% doesn't trigger it. Taking any of the taxable 75% does, even a single pound of it. If you're still paying into a workplace pension while you draw from another one, that distinction alone is worth thousands over time. The system is built in a way that makes it feel like taking your tax-free cash and taking the taxable slice are one single action. They aren't. Treating them as one is what costs people thousands of pounds a year, quietly, through PAYE, without a single letter explaining why. You'd think keeping the taxable portion invested and untouched would be the safe move after that. It's not always that simple. The next trap catches people who did exactly that, and then watched the market take their extra tax-free cash away before they ever got the chance to use it. A lot of advisors will tell you not to take your full tax-free cash up front. Crystallize only what you need now, leave the rest uncrystallized, and let that portion grow with the market. The idea sounds reasonable. If your £200,000 pot grows to £250,000, your tax-free entitlement on the uncrystallized slice grows too, from £50,000 up to £62,500. Free money, on paper. It only works one way, though. It only works if your investments grow faster than you draw from them. Advisors who suggest this aren't trying to catch you out. The logic looks sound on a whiteboard. Growth outpacing withdrawal is exactly how compounding is supposed to work. The problem is the whiteboard doesn't have a stock market crash sitting in the middle of it, and yours might. The 2008 crash saw the FTSE All-Share fall by roughly a third in a single year. The dot-com collapse between 2000 and 2003 took the FTSE 100 down by around half from peak to trough. Neither of those was a freak event. UK equities have gone through more than 10 corrections of 10% or worse since 1990. A 15% drop in a single year isn't rare, it's just a matter of when, not if. Now picture the reverse of that growth story. You've left £75,000 uncrystallised, expecting it to keep climbing. A 15% market drop instead pulls your tax-free entitlement down from £18,750 to £15,938, nearly £2,800 gone, and it happened without you touching a thing. The cost of getting this wrong doesn't show up as one bad year and then it's over. It shows up as a permanently smaller tax-free entitlement for every year that follows, unless the market recovers before you actually need the money, and you don't get to choose when that happens or how long it takes. The rule that comes out of this is simple. Never leave more uncrystallized than you could afford to lose a quarter of overnight. If you're within 3 years of starting withdrawals, take at least half of your total tax-free entitlement as a fixed lump sum now. The rest can stay uncrystallized if you want the growth chance, but cap it there. That way, even if a crash lands in the same year you start drawing, most of your tax-free cash is already locked in and out of the market's reach. I remember sitting in a client meeting in early 2009, watching someone's crystallization statement show their grow-back potential had simply vanished overnight. Nothing dramatic happened in that meeting itself, just quiet, uncomfortable maths on a page. That's the moment that changed how I structure every drawdown plan since. So say you've avoided that trap, and you've kept your crystallization sensible. There's a deeper question still waiting underneath it. Should you spend your tax-free cash now, or save it for later? The answer depends on how long you expect to live, and most people get that part wrong too. The standard advice says spend more early in retirement, you'll naturally slow down later. It sounds sensible enough. But if you live into your 90s, spending your tax-free cash early means you've got nothing left in that category for the decades when your state pension is your only guaranteed income, and any extra need gets taxed at 20 or 40% instead of nothing at all. Picture two versions of the same retirement. Take £50,000 tax-free at 65 and spend it down by 75. After that, every extra pound of pension income is fully taxable on top of your state pension. Need £10,000 for a stair lift at 85. That's £2,000 straight to tax, on money you'd already paid tax on once through a lifetime of national insurance. Now take only £20,000 tax-free at 65 and hold £30,000 of your entitlement back, uncrystallized. Crystallize it at 75, and the stair lift bill at 85 comes out of that tax-free pot instead, no tax on it at all. Over the later decades, that single change in the order you take the money can be worth thousands, simply because it arrives with a different label attached. The tax system doesn't ask why you need £10,000 at 85. It only asks whether that money was already earmarked as tax-free years earlier. That label is the entire difference between a bill and no bill. Neither path is free of cost, and neither one is automatically the right answer for you. Spending more tax-free cash early gives you more breathing room in your 60s and 70s. Preserving it protects you later, especially if you end up needing care, home adaptations, or help you can't predict from where you're sitting today. Which one fits depends on your health, your family's history, and whether you've got other money, an ISA, property, something to lean on early so you're not forced to choose. Here's why this is worth thinking through now rather than later. Men aged 65 in the UK live another 18.5 years on average, taking them to 83.5. Women live another 21 to 86. Roughly 1 in 4 of today's 65-year-olds will live past 90. If you're planning as though you'll need this money for 15 years and you actually need it for 25, the front-loaded plan runs out of exactly the flexibility it was supposed to give you. Now picture you've chosen to preserve. You've got £30,000 of tax-free cash sitting there at 75, waiting. There's still a 4-letter word that can wreck even a careful plan like that one. Emergency tax. Your very first pension withdrawal can get hit with a tax bill well over 40% that you never saw coming. Your first taxable withdrawal is where most of the damage happens, and it's got nothing to do with any of the traps above. HMRC often applies what's called an emergency tax code on that first payment, treating it as though you'll take the exact same amount every single month for the rest of the year. Take £20,000 out once, and the taxman calculates as if you're on track for £240,000 a year. Instead of the roughly £4,000 you'd actually owe on that money, you can lose around £7,400 in one go, nearly double what you actually owed. This isn't HMRC trying to catch you out. When a pension provider makes a first payment, they often don't yet hold a proper cumulative tax code for that income, so the system defaults to assuming the payment will repeat, just to make sure enough tax gets collected somewhere along the way. It usually collects far more than enough. Caution on their end turns into an interest-free loan out of your pocket, one that can take weeks to get back. There's a sequence that avoids almost all of that. Before you withdraw anything, ask your pension provider to confirm your current tax code with HMRC first, rather than defaulting to an emergency basis. If you're not sure what code you're on, HMRC's own tax code checker on gov.uk will tell you. Then start small. Take a modest taxable withdrawal first, a few £100s, before you take anything larger. That first small payment forces HMRC to issue a proper tax code for the payments that follow, instead of guessing at your whole year. Or if you don't need taxable income yet, take only the 25% tax-free portion to begin with. It isn't taxed at all, and it never triggers the emergency code. If it's already happened to you, the overpaid tax doesn't stay with HMRC forever, but you do have to ask for it back yourself. It rarely arrives automatically. If you've still got money left in the pot, Form P55 is the one you want. If you've emptied it and you've got other taxable income, that's P53Z. Emptied it with no other income at all, P50Z. HMRC aims to repay within about 30 working days, and it's worth calling the helpline directly if it drags on past that instead of just waiting. Once your tax code is sorted, set up a regular withdrawal instead of one-off lump sums, monthly or quarterly, for a consistent amount. A steady pattern keeps PAYE calculating correctly and stops this from happening to you twice. Irregular, unpredictable withdrawals are exactly what triggers emergency coding in the first place. Smooth, expected ones are what let HMRC build an accurate code and leave the rest of your year alone. Most people skip that first step entirely. They take £20,000, watch £7,400 of it disappear, and then spend weeks on hold trying to get it back, worrying about bills in the meantime. It's avoidable, every time, if you check your code before the money moves rather than after. Subscribe to the channel if any of this is new to you. The rules around drawdown change most years, and I'd rather you hear about it from someone explaining the mechanism than find out the hard way from your own bank statement. Here's something I see constantly. You've watched dozens of these videos. You know the terms UFPLS, flexi-access drawdown, the MPAA, tax-free cash, and you still haven't made a single withdrawal. It isn't because you're lazy, and it isn't because you don't understand the system. It's because every video hands you 5 or 6 different options, and the fear of picking the wrong one feels worse than the fear of doing nothing at all. That's a real pattern, not a character flaw. Psychologists call it loss aversion. The discomfort of a possible mistake outweighs the quieter cost of just staying still. Except staying still isn't actually neutral. Every year your pension sits untouched past the point you needed it. You're not avoiding a decision. You're making one, just without noticing you've made it. You're not careless. If anything, you're the opposite. Careful enough to have sat through all this material, rather than guessing. But there's a line between being careful and being stuck, and the UK pension system doesn't make that line easy to see. It's built with enough complexity that providers half expect you to bring in an advisor. You don't need to master every rule before you take a single step. Here's the smallest possible move. Contact your pension provider and ask for one withdrawal. Tax-free cash only, something like £1,000. No taxable income. No tax code to worry about, no emergency tax to trip over, just money landing in your account. That one action tends to break the freeze. Once you've actually seen it work, the part of you that's been avoiding this switches over to something closer to curiosity. That's when the rest of the planning gets easier. I don't know your exact situation. I don't know your health, what you're hoping to leave behind, or what else you've got sitting in savings or property. But I do know that doing nothing costs more quietly than taking one small, safe step forward. That small test withdrawal tells you something else too. If your provider fumbles a simple tax-free payment, that's worth knowing now, before you're relying on them for something bigger. Let's bring this together. Don't let your state pension quietly eat your personal allowance. Take only tax-free cash in the years you've got other income landing at the same time. Don't bet your tax-free entitlement on the market doing you a favor. Crystallize at least half of it up front rather than hoping it grows. And don't let the emergency tax trap catch you on your first withdrawal. Check your code, start small, and claim back fast if you're overcharged. Drawdown is the most flexible way to take a pension there is, but flexibility without a plan just gives you more ways to get it wrong. None of this needs sorting in a single afternoon. Work through it one decision at a time, in the order that matches where you actually are right now, not where the last video you watched left off. You've spent decades building this money through work most of us didn't always enjoy every day of. Taking it out in a way that hands a chunk of it back in avoidable tax isn't the ending it deserves. I'll see you in the next video.